delighted to announce that parallel session of herb-drug interaction will commence in 10 minutes. So thank you very much for your attention. So good afternoon, everyone. We are delighted to announce again that the parallel session of herb-drug interaction will commence in 5 minutes. So thank you very much. So distinguished guests, professor and fellow colleagues, good afternoon. We hope you are enjoying the morning session of Hong Kong Global Summit on Chinese Medicine and Integrative Medicine. I'm Shelley, your host of today. So this parallel session will focus on the interaction between herbal medicines and drugs. We are so greatly honored to have 10 distinguished speakers around the globe who will shortly share their latest research findings and insights in this important field. Also, we are deeply honored to have Professor Carol Lau as our moderator for this session. Professor Lau is currently the professor in phytomedicine at Department of Pharmacology and Pharmacy and School of Chinese Medicine at the University of Hong Kong. She is also the Associate Director of Hong Kong UMass Center of Integrative Medicine. Professor Lau has over 30 years of experience in herbal medicines and natural products research, in particular focusing on anti-cancer herbs and natural products, the beneficial herb-drug combination, and integrative medicine. She served as one of the non-official members of Hong Kong SAR Chinese Medicine Development Committee, Chinese Medicine Industry Subcommittee, and is currently the Secretary General of the Consortium for Globalization of Chinese Medicine and Vice President of Hong Kong Association for Integration of Chinese Western Medicine. So now let us welcome Professor Lau on stage with a round of applause. Thank you.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I would like to thank the organizers for giving me this opportunity. It is my honor to chair and moderate this section. Okay, so first of all, among the 10 speakers, as she has introduced, so let me first of all introduce the first speaker. Now, the first speaker is Professor Dennis Chang from Australia. Professor Chang is a professor of pharmacology and director of the National Institute of Complementary Medicine at Western Sydney University. He has over 25 years of experience working in traditional, complementary, and integrative medicine. As an internationally recognized expert in pharmacology and clinical research of natural and traditional medicine, he has led major multi-centered trials on Chinese herbal medicines, yoga, Tai Chi, for conditions such as vascular dementia, mild cognitive impairment, coronary heart disease, metabolic syndrome, and type 2 diabetes. Professor Chang leads NICM's Australian Indigenous Medicine Research Program and was the chair of the 2024 National Symposium on Australia Traditional Medicine. He is also a temporary consultant to the World Health Organization, contributing to various WHO-funded project and training programs. In 2023, he was awarded the inaugural Marcus Blackmore Award for Most Outstanding Contribution to Research and Education by the Australian Complementary Medicine Association in recognition of his exceptional contributions to the field of complementary medicine research and education. So without further ado, let's give a warm welcome to Professor Dennis Chang.
Thank you, Claire. I thought you promised don't rate the whole thing, but anyway, so yeah, thank you. Yeah, so thank you and good afternoon, everyone. It's been a pleasure to come back to Hong Kong. So first of all, I would like to acknowledge the Hong Kong Bureau, as well as the Chinese Medicine Hospital in Hong Kong, for inviting me to present our work in herb-drug interaction database development. So. I make a deal with Professor Lee that I won't give background information because Professor Lee is going to cover that, so it saved me 1 minute. But I would like to point it out that really when we talk about herb-drug interaction, we often focus on the harmful effect of herb-drug interaction and overlook the potential beneficial effect, and that actually can enhance the efficacy and safety of some of the herbal or pharmaceutical medicine when you taking them together. So that's, I would just like to remind people that there's other aspect of that. So obviously what we are currently challenging is there's a lack of information and the credible guidelines and guide the practitioner to use and to avoid to use sort of the combination therapy. That's why we actually developing this database and aiming to provide that sort of guidance. So this is a multilateral collaboration between Western Sydney University, that's us, and Sydney University under the leadership of Associate Professor Joanna Harnett's group. And they are responsible for developing Western herbal medicine, minerals and vitamins, and we are focused on traditional Chinese herbal medicine. So, and then we also work with industry partner by the name of Unity Health, and they have 20 years experience in developing credible medical information to practitioners. And so, and eventually we actually partner with MINS, which is the largest medical information data set provided to Western medical practitioner, TCM practitioner in Australia, New Zealand, as well as the Southeast Asian countries. So we actually did that in 3 different stages. Obviously, as you can see, the stage 1 is more to set up the methodology, set up the process, and validate the method we've been using. And then stage 2, we're developing like 100 monographs of individual Chinese herbs. And then in stage 3, we actually further expand that to 200 monographs. And so now it's become more useful because it does consist of at least 200 most commonly used herbs. And more recently, we have secured some scholarship by the Australian government, and now we are working with a PhD student and to validate some of the assessments methodology we developed, which I describe slightly later. So, so fundamentally, this actually explained the what I just said about the different stages. I skipped that one. So fundamentally, what we have done is we developed this method, and then we have selected the most common herbs and for this data set, and largely based on like 3 areas. And for example, we have the nomenclature compendiums from Chinese Medicine Board of Australia. So we, in fact, helped them to develop that. And also we look at the most commonly used herbs by the TCM practitioner in Australia. And then we also take reference of some of the warning or adverse drug reaction report from the drug regulator in Australia, which is the Therapeutic Goods Administration, TGA. So that's how we chosen those herbs and for developing monograph with. So then we, for each of the herbs, we have done a systematic review and then compile all the existing literature, either the clinical case study or even systematic review. And we also look at the gray literature, and based on that, we summarize the evidence in there. In addition to that, we not only summarize that, we also actually assign the evidence level. We assess the evidence level, and then on the basis of evidence level, we assess the likelihood of those herb-drug interaction from happening. So on that basis, and then we further evaluate that and validate that system through a panel that consists of pharmacologists, toxicologists, and TCM practitioners and Western medical practitioners, as well as consumer rep, and to further validate that before we make them into that platform uploaded to the MINS, which I will talk about in a minute. So this is the stage 2. I won't go through this in details, but you can see basically many of those herbs that we have developed are most commonly used herbs as well. So altogether, it's 200 of them there. The way we assess the evidence is based on the following criteria. We divided the evidence into 4 different levels. And the top level is a well-established level, referring to the scenario where we can find at least 2 clinical trials or 2 case study report that actually shows the interaction. So that's probably the well-established level. And the next level down is the good level. and which refer to one clinical trials, one adverse drug reaction case report. So then the next level down is limited. That's when you only get evidence or information from animal study, from laboratory study, like a cell line studies, and that shows the interaction between those two herbs, the herbs and Western medicine. And when we found no information, obviously it's not established. So that's how we assign this evidence level according to these 4 different levels. And on that basis, we assign the likelihood, which means how likely those two, when they use together, to produce interactions. So then we said that also there's 5 different levels there. So obviously the top level is avoid combination, which clearly shows that at least a good level of evidence, which means there's at least one clinical trial or one case study supporting that. And caution, which means the limited evidence that mainly coming from the laboratory, in vitro, and in vivo studies. Unlikely, which at least have one limited evidence to support those two when you put them together is unlikely to interact, or potentially beneficial. That's what I said at the beginning. We often forgot about that. So basically, there are some combination that can potentially produce a beneficial therapeutic effect. So we signed that, and then unresolved is basically not established. In fact, in the database, we use a different color code. The red means you shouldn't be using them together. Obviously, the green potentially beneficial. So out of that 200 herbs, the monographs, so we have identified close to 600 records. The published record, either clinical trials or case study report, etc., or animal studies, in vitro laboratory studies. And then you can see that out of that 595, and there's 241 from RCT trials and 27 from case study, and then 144 from in vitro, and 113 from in vivo studies. So but when you look at the likelihood of that, you can see that the top level, which is avoid combination, only represent a very small number of the pair, the drug pair. It's only 7 of them out of that 595. So then the rest of them, you can see that I would like to highlight that you can see the potential beneficial combination. Actually, it's a 296, quite substantial number of the combination potentially show beneficial effect. But bearing in mind that most of those evidence coming from the laboratory, so there is no clinical validation of that, but still in the animal studies or in the laboratory study that shows there's an effect that can enhance when you're using them together. So, so that's basically summarize what I just said. So this is one example when you use a goji berry with warfarin. This is a basically well-known one. So, so when you use them, the goji berry actually increase the IMR, which is the index for coagulation. So basically, you can see that when you're using them together, they demonstrate there is a potential issue with the bleeding in the patient. So there's, in fact, there's a 6 particular case study report. So 1, 2, 3. I don't worry about reading them. It's too crowded here. So the conclusion is to avoid combination. So that's one example. The second example I gave you is when you combine these centilla with some phenytoids, which is the anticonvulsant effect, which is the one inhibit the sodium channel, through sodium channel to suppress the electric activity in the brain during the convulsion. So it shows that the centilla actually increase the plasma concentration of phenytoid, and also to reduce the clearance rate through kidney as well. So which means that when you're using these two together, it actually potentially increases the toxicity associated with the phenytoins. So as a result of that, we assigned caution because there was only sort of a laboratory test result. There's no confirmed clinical evaluation for that. The third example is this, the Watini with the oxacillin, which is the antibiotics. So when you're using these two herbs together, and the herbs actually increase the antimicrobial effect of the oxacillin, especially against the multi-resistant Staphylococcus aureus. So therefore, based on that, we assign the potential beneficial effect when you're using these two together. So fundamentally, what we have done in this database, we managed to set up an evidence-based herbal medicine, herb drug interaction data set, which become very useful when we uploaded and launched that in October 2025 through means, as I said. So obviously there's a commercial data set, so therefore people subscribe that you have to pay a certain percentage of the fee. The clinician often do that because it's 140 Australian dollars. It's not a huge amount of money. So, and then we are actually currently in the process of planning the training with that. We are also in the process of further expand that. Our ultimate aim is to probably cover another 200 herbs, make it 400, so probably cover 80% of the herbal medicine commonly used. So in conclusion, although this shows some significant work has been done, but there are huge challenges in terms of we haven't been able to do multi-complex formulation and the evidence level, even though some of them through clinical study, but majority of that coming from preclinical study. So there is a lot needs to be done. So I'm pleased that we formed this international consortium of herb drug interaction. I'm really looking forward to work with many of you here in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Zhang, for his insightful presentation. And we are delighted to have Professor Lau to come to the stage with Professor Zhang to present an appreciation certificate to Professor Zhang. Thank you very much.
Okay, so let's move on to the second speaker. So second speaker is Professor Myung-Soo Lee, also my old friend. Is from South Korea. So Professor Lee is a principal researcher at the Korea Institute of Oriental Medicine in South Korea. He is a founding member and former board member of the International Society of Complementary Medicine Research. Professor Lee is actively involved with the RIGHT group and currently serves as the chair of the Guideline International Network Asia. He is responsible for the Cochrane Complementary Medicine Korea. Professor Lee has authored or co-authored more than 600 journal articles, including original papers, reviews, and book chapters related to complementary and alternative medicine, and also integrative medicine. He is recognized as one of the top 3 CAM researchers worldwide in terms of publication volume and is among the top 2% of scientists globally, according to the Stanford University Citation Ranking. So he was appointed as a member of the WHO's Strategic and Technical Advisory Group for Traditional Complementary and Integrative Medicine starting in 2026. So let's give a warm welcome to Professor Myung-Soo Lee.
Thank you for kind introduction, and it is great honor to be here and present our topic. And today I would like briefly introduce to Korean National Herbal Drug Interaction Research Program. I have no financial interest, conflict of interest, but I have some intellectual conflicted interest. And I would like to declare that this presentation is most based on material from National Institute of Korean Medicine and KM Click and Professor Sojung Park. And also, I used the ChatGPT and other AI to convert the table to figures. This is the This slide highlights the urgent need for herbal drug interaction research in Korea. Although 76% of dual care patients use herbal medicine and conventional medicine concurrently, and 26% take them without any time separation. Fewer than 10 formal clinical interaction studies have been concluded. This evidence gap underscores the need for evidence-based co-prescribing guidelines to improve the patient safety. This slide compares Korea's herbal drug interaction research with the leading countries, including Japan, China, and United States. Sorry, I forgot to include the Australian. While these countries have established clinical evidence, pharmacovigilance system, and regulatory framework, Korea only launched its national HDI program in 2020 and has completed fewer than 10 formal clinical studies. Our priority is to accelerate research, strengthening safety infrastructure, and integrated HDI evidence into clinical practice. To address this evidence gap, Professor Hyang-Suk Lee in Kyung University developed KM Click Drug Interaction Database, Korea's national herb drug interaction research platform. The database contains over 37,000 evidence-based interaction records covering drug, herbs, supplement, food, and laboratory tests, with every entry systematically graded according to the strength of the evidence. Together with the Professor Park's ongoing gastroesophageal flux disease GERD clinical trial, this platform will support safe clinical decision-making and provide the strong evidence base for future HDI research. This slide shows Korea's national R&D program to generate the scientific evidence for the safe use of herbal medicine with conventional drugs. NICOM's ultimate goal is to provide high-quality evidence that support safe prescribing and future clinical guidelines for herbal drug interaction. The current phase 2 GERD project is evaluating 15 herb drug combination using standardized and process that include evidence collection, severity assessment, and evidence appraisal. This slide summarizes the individual project within Korea's National Herb Drug Interaction Research Program. In page 1, we focus on acute respiratory disease, cardiovascular disease, diabetes, and depression or dementia. In page 2, we expanded the program to pain, dyslipidemia, and neuromuscular disorders, and GERD. For each disease area, we evaluate commonly prescribed conventional drugs together with representative herbal formula to generate high-quality evidence that support safe and effective co-use of herbal and conventional medicine. Third is not a single disease in Korean medicine, but is classified into several pathological patterns, each requiring a different herbal formula. But for this project, we select 5 representative formulas that target different mechanisms, including acid regulation, gastrointestinal motility, and other symptoms. These evidence-based formula will evaluate in our herbal drug interaction study to determine their safety when co-administered with conventional anti-GERD medication. Before clinical trial, Professor Park in Busan National University analyzed the metabolic pathway of both herbal formulas and the anti-GERD drug. They identified potential interaction involving key CYP enzyme responsible for metabolizing PPIs and PCABs. These findings provide a scientific base for selecting herb-drug combination for subsequent clinical studies. Before starting our national program, Professor Park conducted Korea's first regulatory approved clinical herbal drug interaction study using galguntan and acetaminophen as a proof of concept. In this randomized crossover trial, co-administration increased acetaminophen exposure by approximately 25%, and suggesting the herbal medicine can significantly alter drug pharmacokinetics. Over the past 5 years, her group has expanded clinical HDI study from respiratory disease to GERD. This stepwise approaching has established robust research platform for future studies, including immuno-oncology. Alongside the clinical trial, NICOM, National Institute of Korean Medicine, has developed a national HDI infrastructure, including real-world data analysis, clinical guideline, and HDI database, and integration into the National Drug Utilization Review System. These efforts support safer medication use in clinical practice. To standardize herbal drug interaction research, NICOM developed national guidance of guidelines based on international standard. They translate 2020 US FDA drug interaction guidance and refine it through expert review and public consultation. The final guidance of guidelines provide standardized framework for future HDI study and regulatory implementation. In 2022, NICOM published the Korea's first national guidance and template for herbal drug co-administration guideline. They now serve as a national standard for evidence-based HDI guideline for regulatory decision-making. NICOM established a standardized 5-step process for developing herbal drug interaction recommendation. It ensures that every recommendation is transparent, evidence-based, and applicable to clinical practice. Each guideline undergoes the rigorous review process from expert consensus to national approval. This ensures that all recommendations are scientifically sound and ready for clinical implementation. NICOM's ultimate goal is to integrate HDI evidence to Korea's DUR system. Real-time alert will help physicians and pharmacists identify potential interaction, supporting safer, evidence-based prescribing. NICOM's goal is to translate research into policy, integrating HDI's evidence into DUR system will support evidence-based prescribing, improve patient safety, and advance integrative medicine. In summary, herb-drug interaction research is no longer optional. It is essential for patient safety, Korea has built a national platform to generate high-quality evidence, and our ultimate goal is to translate this evidence into clinical practice and health policy through international collaboration. And thank you for your attention.
So thank you, Professor Lee, for his presentation, leading us to have a deeper understanding on the HDI development in Korea. So we are delighted to invite Professor Lau again to present an appreciation award to the Professor Lee. Thank you so much.
So our next speaker is Professor Zhong Zhou. Professor Zhou is the professor and also, of the School of Chinese Medicine, School of Pharmacy, and also the director of the Institute of Chinese Medicine at the Chinese University of Hong Kong. She has published over 220 SCI research papers in renowned journals. She is also recognized as the top 2% scientist globally by Stanford University. And in 2021, Professor Zhou was elected as a fellow of the American Association of Pharmaceutical Scientists, AAPS. And in 2023, she received the Royal Society of Chemistry Dalton Horizon Award. So without further ado, let's give a warm welcome to Professor Zhong Zhou.
Thanks, everyone, and thank Clara for the kind introduction. Actually, Clara and I, we were colleagues. We joined Hong Kong at a very good time, year 2000. So that actually make my whole story why I started to do herb-drug interactions. Because I myself also was trained as a Western medicine, like a pharmaceutical scientist. So the time we joined Hong Kong, actually, along with this mapping about integrated medicine practice in Hong Kong. So year 1997, Hong Kong just returned it back to China. So starting from there, the Chinese medicine started to get into the main stage. But the first question people are asking always is the safety concern, because whenever you want to jump into the mainstream healthcare. So looking from this roadmap about integrated medicine practice in Hong Kong, actually around the year 2000, we already have a sort of a local, relatively large-scale survey data. So actually the data was done by our commissioner who gave a talk this morning, Dr. Vincent Chung. So back then, we already found around like a quarter of the people are already taking both Chinese medicine and Western medicine behind the table, okay? So regardless, that's a huge safety concern. I think starting from then, and although another chance is around the year 2003, Hong Kong have the attack of the SARS. So whenever the Western medicine is sort of out of the approach, the Chinese medicine started to get involved. Back then, our hospital authorities started to investigating the possibility of integrative Chinese medicine into the mainstream. And that's where my research also starts from. And starting from there, all along the way, with the establishment of this hospital, and also last year was a good time because at the end of last year, our chief executive already in his policy address, for the first time, the herb-drug interaction term was mentioned in the government's policy address. You can see how important it is. So that lead to, I think, today's the summit. So we want to really work together with everyone around the world on these important areas. And whenever we start to talk about the herb-drug interactions, I think our question is, where does evidence come from, okay? And from the evidence level-wise, usually I think a lot of us just go for a literature search. and I happen to be a researcher. So my research also spreading around all this field, from the preclinical, clinical. Eventually, the easiest way, everybody just want to have a database to ask me, tell me whether I can take it together or not, like Professor Chan has mentioned. So my research spread it around all this field. So I'll just highlight some of my research, my personal research on preclinical, clinical, and later on the database, to share with you how we are doing this with the local experience. So my herb-drug interaction data projects, starting from basically it's very clinical oriented. So first we have to have a clinical question, then I come back to do the research, including preclinical as well as clinical evidence. So the one I highlighted here, the number 2 and the 3, are the project, that's where I started with the hospital authority back in 2003. So where we are using oseltamivir, the Tamiflu, in the practice, whereas the Chinese medicine was trying to really in combination use. So everybody was asking how safe it is. Are you affecting my concentrations? That's the first question we're asking. And also, are you affecting my effectiveness? So since then, I've been working with the hospital authority quite a lot. I think it's a very rewarding research because we do have a clinical question. So then I come back to do all the basic research to support the eventually clinical outcome answers. So since then, I've been doing really lots of diseases, including the anti-inflammatory, antiviral, cardiovascular, and also the CNS drugs. And it's spread it around everywhere. We do have clinical questions to ask. So in general, the herb-drug interaction do react in 2 ways. And a lot of literature just report, majority are saying how much of the herbs affecting our drug concentrations. So these are the realities. But eventually, we need to look at the ultimate pharmacodynamic effects. So like the question I was asking about the Tamiflu, because when we're doing the research, we did find the herbs actually do affect Tamiflu's active metabolite concentrations a bit. However, eventually the ultimate pharmacodynamic effect-wise, actually it's an enhanced effect. So we need to look at everything in one go rather than just only the concentration level. So that's my lesson 1 I learned. And these are some summaries about my past 26 years experience on majority on this pharmacokinetic mediated herb-drug interactions. Actually, they're in same principles. So they're affecting each other, majority in the absorption pathway, before absorption or during absorption, followed by the metabolism pathways, and eventually the distribution or elimination pathways. So ultimate changing the drug concentration, either enhance or decrease, but more or less, we need to focus on whether the drug is a narrow therapeutic index drug or not. So if they are, we need to highly alert about the safety about the drug. If they're not, usually the individual variation of drug concentration is around 20 or 30%. So we need to keep those margins in our mind. Summarized interactions. So these are all my own publications. I'm just sharing with you what are the regular approaches are. So some, they do in majority like a PK interactions. I think Professor Lee also mentioned a lot of on the CYPs, cytochrome P450. But cytochrome P450 is already co-regulated P-glycoproteins. So that's portion of interactions. And also, regardless, we do have phase 2 metabolism, which are the UGTs, co-regulated with the MRP transporters. So that also involved in the herb-drug interaction. Because a lot of our herbs are metabolized through the UGT pathways, especially like flavonoids. And the last 2 is very interesting, I find, during my research. One is the carboxylesterase mediated interactions. So which is a hydrolysis enzyme, usually work on our prodrugs, how they activate. So recently, what we found is the herbal medicine also affect that group of enzymes. Okay, the hydrolysis enzyme of the prodrugs, like clopidogrel, even aspirin, including Tamiflu. Okay, so that will be affected by the herbal medicine too. The last one, actually something very interesting now. You've heard a lot about microbiota. Actually, microbiota also mediated the herb-drug interactions. Our Western drugs, as well as the herbal medicine, a lot of them work through that pathway. So that's some new pathway I found. And also, as I mentioned, herb and drug interact may not in the PK ways. They could only work on the dynamic pathways, like a lot of oncology drugs interaction as well. They don't share the metabolic pathway, but they could affect their effect. And also in the meantime, a lot of herb-drug interactions, they can affect both the concentration as well as the effect, either in a consistent way or opposite way. But what I found is the most important is the dynamic outgoes for the interactions. So that's my just sharings. Some quick projects sharing with what we're doing in Hong Kong. As I mentioned, we do preclinical, clinicals, and these are some unique formulas actually invented by our Institute of Chinese Medicine at the Chinese University of Hong Kong, just 2 herbs with danshan and the gegen. So when they're using clinical-wise, they want to see the interaction with warfarin and aspirins. So we did some pilot study. So we found warfarin can offset, warfarin's effect can be offset by this danshan and again, whereas the aspirin's effect can be enhanced by them. So when we have 2 herbs, we do further to see which one offset the warfarin effect, whether it's gegen or danshan. So eventually we found it's gegen. Okay, gegen actually is full of the rich in isoflavones, shared component with the soyas, etc. So these are just one of the clinical study recently we have finished. So we not only look at the kinetic interaction on different SIPs, but eventually interesting finding is we find actually gegen's inhibition on the CYP2C19 is genetic polymorphism based. So if you are a poor metabolizer, probably have nothing to inhibit anymore. But if you are extensive one, you do have a chance of being affected, inhibited by the gegen uses. So these are some basic or clinical research, our original research we developed. And quick question nowadays is, so with all of these, doing experiments is too slow, not too much money to do it as well. So can we use AI to dig more evidence? So these are the past experiences we have. So we definitely know a lot of evidence, like a database out there. So these are just some major ones I highlighted, which including free ones, and also the one you need to pay. Definitely the one you need to pay is more updated, is more comprehensive. The free one, usually why they're free, because they run out of money, okay? And then, so with these summaries, what we found is actually our hospital authority developed their own databases, even though it's only on 3 categories of the drugs, but with a very comprehensive rationale behind it. So we were asking whether we can combine all of these together to develop something on our own. But the key information is, so we need to have a full list of the drug name. A drug has a lot of names. The herbs also have lots of names. So we need to build a dictionary for each of them. And then, most important thing is the level of significance, as Professor Chan has mentioned, whether they're clinical significant or just preclinical evidence. However, I think in Hong Kong, we work together. We find eventually you want to really develop into a clinical guideline. The consensus among the core group is very important. So these are something we want to highlight. But also I want to highlight things. It's not just the facts. We need to know the mechanism behind it in order to be able to predict or extrapolate to other herbs also containing similar components. And the reference definitely is important. So with that, I'm thinking the rationale is there. And also, we need a lot of people to do it. Even with the same menus, people do it in a different way. So can AI help with this labor-intensive, but as long as we know the standard? So since 2016, our group has developed this herb-drug interaction databases with the AI aided. So with the AI aid, so we have the copyright obtained. I developed with our engineer colleagues. And the technical route is basically we train the robot to go to the literature databases to dig out the information. In this aspect, we adopted the hospital authorities' idea. We do need multi-language literature. So we including both simplified Chinese as well as complicated form Chinese, plus English literature. And we do include not only single herbs, a component as well as the formula as well. And we are training the robots to be able to dig out and also training them to identify whether they are herb-drug interaction relevant. If they are, what's the herbs, what's the drugs, and what the level of evidence, and also what are the factors, parameters they're affecting of what diseases. So with that, we have this database with daily automation because it's AI. They do OTs all the time. And also, they avoid the bias. And we do include both mainstream Chinese, English literatures, and cover a lot of herbs. And these are the coverage we're having so far, which is, I think we doubled the coverage already since 2025. And we're having almost triple the herb-drug interaction pairs, including both the formula as well as the drugs. And by searching-wise, we can search them by pinyin or literature names, and also herb-drug interactions. You can search by drug, by herbs, or even by formulas. And with the type of information, we have all these level of informations there. For example, for this weights, so when you're looking at the information sheet, they have basic weights and a component, and at the bottom, which is the interactions. So when you dig out the interactions, they were telling you the study types. With weights and tachylomas, we have majority are the human, and they are showing they're affecting the PK. And eventually, when you find a mechanism, it's their inhibition on the CYP3A4 and the PGPs. So these are very solid evidence. And I've been working with the local private hospital, public hospital, including Dr. Raymond Timothy's group, and also the safety centers on providing evidence to them on this further guidelines. So these are just some WeChat and Probot. You can have a try. And yeah, these are the core key tools we developed based on previous literature findings. So we can have digging tools and identifier tools, and also the paper. And this is what we're currently finishing on the cancer Probot. So we have a further enhancement on the cancer-related drugs on this database. And also, we're also using the same tool to do the toxicity of toxic herbs database as well. And plus, this is what we're highlighting now, because I'm working with the government, also the Chinese medicine hospital authorities, based on the evidence we collected and how we generate the rubrics for grading evidence for herb-drug interactions. And we want to develop a methodology framework for the clinical practice guidelines. So eventually, disseminate these strategies to promote the clinical practice guideline. So that's why also this consortium is very important to our commission project at this stage. So the last message is, I think regardless, when I came here 26 years ago, I never know there is a chance now for us to work with the government. So the opportunity is always for the people who have queries and rarely prepared to answer them. And last is the acknowledgement. So as I mentioned from the beginning, we're really just from our researchers, but with the help of our teams from Hospital Authority and also Research Fund, that's very important, and also various departments in our university, plus a lot of organizations in Hong Kong. So we really wish to move these things forward and looking forward to working with you guys. Thank you.
So thank you, Professor Zhou, for her presentation. And Professor Zhou, please remain on stage with us. And we are happy to have Professor Lau to present the Appreciation Award to Professor Zhou. Thank you.
Okay, the next speaker is my colleague, Professor Ping Zhang. Professor Zhang is an associate professor at the Musketeers Foundation Institute of Data Science and also the Department of Pharmacology and Pharmacy at the University of Hong Kong. His research lies at the intersection of data science and medicine with a focus on developing interpretable machine learning and evolutionary modeling to understand the complex biological systems. His work has appeared in journals such as Nature, Human Behavior, Nature Communications, and PNAS. Professor Zhang has performed extensive research on the systematic modeling of the drug-herb interactions. So without further ado, let's give a warm welcome to Professor Zhang.
Okay, so good afternoon. It's my great pleasure to be here to share my research. So I'm a data scientist working in the pharmacy department. So I will be introducing some of the AI stuff and then eventually come down to the AI herb, the drug herb interactions and a few others about TCM. So the AI to us is more like complicated guess, okay? Of course, different people have different interpretations of AI, but from my perspective, because I come from the complex systems community, so 2021, the Nobel Prize to Physics, Professor Giorgio Parisi, his contribution was those kind of mathematical tools to map a complex systems to an energy landscape. And this energy landscape has high and low energy those kind of state points. So especially those low energy, local minimal or equilibrium states. So this complex system may converge and become stable in certain state, right? Does it sound like more like, by the way, his model is called spin glass model. So it's kind of the glass, right? The glass is not something like metal. The particles are not that organized. And it is also, it looks like the fluid or the gas, right? Those different particles don't seem to have some interrelationship, but they can form some solid frame. So that's kind of a different states. And if we heat it up, the glass will transform to different other shapes. And after it got cooled down, it got converged to another state. And this kind of a model can be used to describe a lot of complex systems, such as gene regulation, or social networking, or a few other things. And does this also sound more like TCM, right? Chinese medicine, a more like systematic approach to look into the health, right? So kind of, for example, one of our core research is on the mathematical modeling of the immune system. It's kind of the immune system from all those different information, all the different high dimensionality data. So this might be the healthy state, and after COVID infection, after different stuff, right? So eventually people recover. But when you recover, you may not recover back to your original healthy states, right? And also aging, right? The aging is not like one factor, one biomarker, right? It's kind of multiple biomarkers, multiple things, multiple genes, and they all work together to drive the change, the transition of the system. So this is the fundamental methodologies that we use to model all kinds of things, right? So I was lucky enough to co-author with Parisi. Our paper was published earlier this year. And from the book that he gave me, right, so he wrote that hopefully you can find something interesting from this old book. So in this very old book, published in 70s, 80s, spin glass model, spin glass theory and beyond, there is about 1/5 of the last few chapters about biological applications. So I was interested in the biological applications of the immune system, right, of the infection, of cancer. But I was surprised to find that the so-called biological applications was all about the neurons, the AI, right? So the 2024, the first AI Nobel Prize in physics, one of them was John Hopfield. So John Hopfield basically utilized that model to model the neural system. Okay, so now you can imagine that this complex system may converge to different states. And each of the local equilibrium state may correspond to a memory. So this is actually the GIF. In the original model, the different colors eventually converge to white and black, right? So they are white pixels together, black pixels together, but it can form all different shapes. And John Hopfield, the Hopfield network is basically one step further. So it will converge to a shape, and this shape will be more certain, okay? So the model will be guessing which local equilibrium states will be reached. So for example, this one could be eventually a butterfly or a bicycle. Okay, so you see that the AI system, the so-called AI is essentially a complicated guess on a complex system. And of course, Hinton's model further developed it to multiple layers of these neural receptions and new receptors, and eventually to the nowadays AI. Of course, this AI, what AI can do, right? So it's a guess, right? AI can guess the 3D shape of the protein based on the sequence, and it can guess based on a lot of things. But eventually, it is a complicated guess on a complex systems. So I will quickly go through some of our early work to analyze the health systems. So here, this is a complex systems of the diseases. So we harnessed several years, over a decade data, all the hospital authority, those are hospitalization data of all the Hong Kong patients, and construct this disease comorbidity network. And from the analysis of this complex network, we will be able to predict what kind of disease might occur on different patients. And of course, and this model is mostly the guess based on the observed comorbidity patterns. But what is actually driving those comorbidity patterns? That's something, the next question we hope to ask. So one of the earlier work that we published last month was about to look into the blood, right? Look into the patient's blood, and then to test all those different omics. By the way, the pictures were all generated by AI, right? The genes, the proteins, the metabolics. So this is multi-omic analysis of the patient blood. And of course, I think all my future research will be presented by Doraemon or something, right? The AI. The AI is giving a very good metaphor. It's like the gene is something like the blueprint for the factory, right? So the blueprint of the factory, of course, determines something, but it's not the whole story. Whether the factory can work, it also depends on the machines, the workers, right? The robots, which are the proteins in the human system, and the metabolics, which are the raw materials and also the waste out of the generations of the plant, of the manufacturing plant. So for many patients, the blueprints are good, but because of a lot of things, right? You're drinking, you're smoking, you do a lot of things, and the machines are very tired, very old, where the metabolics, the waste cannot be like deposited and stuff. So from our research, right, so here we focus on cardiovascular diseases, and all of the popular cardiovascular diseases, only 2 of them can be well predicted by genomics. So this is really something like we have the control, right? We can control our health. Of course, some of them are very genetic, but for the majority of them, they can only be well predicted by proteomics and metabolomics. And the proteomics and the metabolomics are something that are dynamic, okay? It's not something we have to do gene editing. So this can be changed by exercise, can supplements, by pharmaceutical products, right, or even drugs. So yeah, and of course, for different people, you can imagine I do the test, so I know my risk and what are the factors, what are the proteins or metabolics that are directly predicting my risk, and then what kind of TCM, what kind of herbs, or what kind of drugs, or what kind of exercises, or even mental health stuff that can be used to prevent, right, to prevent the onset of the actual risk. So basically, we hope to change the trajectory. And we'll skip some of them. And so you see that at the beginning, we look into diseases purely based on clinical observations. And then we use the multi-omics sequencing to look into the proteins. But what about something in the middle, right? So it's definitely useful for rich people, right? So it's definitely useful for rich people. It's very expensive. But for a lot of people, for the majority of people, what we can do is we can use the open data, something like Professor Chang, Professor Li, Professor Zuo, they mentioned, right? So they have all those well-harnessed data about herbs, about drugs, about diseases, and we can extend, right? For example, like for long COVID, right? For long COVID, from the actual data, I know that those people got a blue disease, getting to the red disease after getting COVID. But what it is, right? What it is, it's actually each disease is associated with hundreds of proteins in the human cells. And on this very huge protein-protein interaction network, we got to model the relationships between those diseases in a systematic way, right? Using those topology to represent their relationships. And the infection of SARS-CoV-2 basically are shortening the topological distance between these 2 diseases, leading to the higher risk or earlier onset of the disease. And of course, from here, we got to know what specific genes, what the specific proteins that are like predicting the onset of diseases so that we can do more precise, personalized interventions. And of course, if we are using drugs or TCMs, right? So drugs are designed to target at certain proteins. And the TCM, the herb medicine, those natural evolved compounds, of course, they were now designed. So basically, they have a wider range of protein targets as compared to human-designed drugs. And they are targeting at certain proteins. So basically, we map the diseases and the drugs and TCMs and supplements and nutraceuticals all to the protein level, and then analyze the protein level to make inference about the health of people. So a lot of our research was on to predict the drug response. Of course, the mainstream research was still on Western drugs, but we started collaboration with Clara. So later I will mention a bit, but Clara may tell you more. But here we have a model called graph synergy, and we use it to predict the synergistic drug combinations for cancer. And it was identified, we identified that it can verify known combinations. It can also predict something that we haven't known yet. So the model's prediction accuracy was supposed to be 90%, but among those 10% wrong predictions, and some of them were actually just verified by clinical trials. And similar stories happens in like some drug repurposing, and for all those drugs, right? So 5 of them were considered correct predictions, but among the wrong predictions, 1 of them was just approved by FDA, and a few of them are still undergoing those RCTs. So we applied those models with Clara. So Clara gave us a list of chemotherapy for breast cancer, and also the list of the herbs that people commonly used among the Chinese people in Hong Kong. And then we use our model to recommend the potentially synergistic combinations. And then Clara's team did the animal studies. And very encouragingly, we are receiving some positive results from the animals. And of course, we can predict synergistic combination, but there is also significant risk of the negative drug interactions. So taking COVID as an example, right? So during the relaxation of China of COVID, the non-pharmaceutical interventions, the National Health Commission recommended 19 drugs. And a lot of news about ibuprofen and lianhua qingwen, right? So some CDC said it's not very suggested, but also the company was saying that there's totally no evidence saying that there is interactions, right? But this is something I wouldn't say is unethical, because we don't have the resources to have RCTs among all the combinations, right? So we have to rely on AI to predict something that we haven't performed. We haven't used the RCT to verify. So we use our model and to identify that these two drugs are not supposed to take together. It's not like you don't want to take lianhua qingwen, but you can take ibuprofen first and wait for 4 hours and then use those TCMs. And we apply this model among all the 19 drugs, including Western drugs and TCM drugs, and eventually we find that a lot of them have this risk. But of course, investors, they want us to more provide suggestions rather than prevent the use of drugs. So yeah, so for the long-term health management, for example, this is an elderly, it's an older patient, right? So who is taking several drugs a day. Normally, people just take all of them together. So first, we know what are those who cannot be used together, but also, given the conditions, given some drugs that this guy is taking, what kind of supplements, what kind of herbs, what kind of TCM drugs that we can provide to the patients. And there were some, but this is not herbs, but in one of the hospitals in Wuhan, there were several AML, those leukemic cancer cell patients who ran out of options. And we use our model to recommend some new combinations, some new therapies based on FDA-approved drugs for the patient. And several patients were already, I wouldn't say it's saved, but we still are following up. But several patients reached the CR. We're still accumulating some evidence. So last year, in the New England Journal of Medicine, they had several patients, a similar approach for one of the rare diseases, and we are applying our methods in cancer patients. That would be it. Just one last sentence is that we also analyze like cancer tumor microenvironment, also consider the whole system, the dynamic system, and this dynamic system, very TCM philosophy, right? So it's not just the single symptoms. It's more about how to model the whole system, the dynamics, the evolution of the system, and how to steer the evolution of the system for better treatment. So this in these papers, we consider the competition between different types of tumor cells and also the organizations of different immune cells and how those the cancer cells and immune cells interact to find better and more personalized therapy for individual patients. Okay, so that's my sharing. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Zhang, and please remain with us on stage. And grateful for Professor Lau to proceed on stage to present the award to the Professor Zhang. Thank you. So thank you, and please take a seat first. So thank you, Professor Lau, for moderating the first half of the session. And we will now proceed to the 20-minute tea break. And please enjoy our tea reception outside the venue, and we will start the session soon. Thank you. So good afternoon. So please be informed that the tea break session will soon conclude and the parallel session will restart again shortly. Thank you. Stand by, Tris. So welcome back to the parallel session, and I hope you have enjoyed our tea reception outside. So before we start the second half of the session, let's give a warm applause to Professor Carol Lau, our esteemed moderator, to be on stage again. Thank you, Professor Lau.
Thank you. So welcome back to this section. So our next speaker is Professor Dieter Melchart. Professor Melchart held the first professorship for naturopathy and also complementary medicine in the Technical University of Munich. There he headed the Competence Center for Complementary Medicine and Neuropathy until 2025. Professor Melchart has been the chairman of the Scientific Advisory Board of the first German clinic for traditional Chinese medicine in Germany. His research focuses on clinical evaluation of acupuncture, TCM medicines, and lifestyle medicine. So let's give a warm welcome to Professor Dieter Melchart.
Esteemed audience, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon, everybody. It's really a pleasure for me being here, and I would like now to introduce the topic of quality control of TCM herbs at the TCM hospital in Bad Kötzting, the first hospital for traditional Chinese medicine in Germany. This lecture is structured as follows. I don't want to give a brief introduction anymore. I will explain the background to the investigations and the nature of the research, and finally my conclusions. This picture is 6 years younger than I am now. You have a look at the TCM hospital. The TCM hospital has about 81 beds and 1,000 inpatients a year. There is also operates an outpatient department and a prevention center. You can see on the right side. You can find more information in the Springer ebook shown here. The clinic's research program, it's called Patient Evaluation Program, is strongly practice-oriented, focusing on quality assurance, effectiveness, and safety issues, which will be shown in more details now. The findings of the current clinic report are made available electronically and will also be published in book form every year. Traditional Chinese medicine, with its focus on herbal remedies, is popular and widely appreciated, although the therapeutic efficacy of most herbal TCM products is poorly established. While a treatment is generally considered safe, discussions have recently emerged regarding the potential for herb-induced liver injury, HELI, from herbal TCM products. Global research into the safety of herbal medicine remains limited. Side effects range from those that are clinically irrelevant to more serious symptoms, including suspected liver damage. Drug-induced liver injury is defined as abnormalities in liver function tests or liver dysfunctions following medication intake. Only a few prospective studies have investigated the actual prevalence and incidence of liver damage in hospitalized patients. It is estimated that approximately 12.0 to 23.8 cases of DLI occur in the general population per 100,000 people. In hospital settings, approximately 1 to 6% of patients may be affected. The highest DLI incidence rate at 23.8 per 100,000 people is found in China, where herbal-induced liver injury accounts for 25% of all liver injuries. That is why there is still a discussion about the extent of the risk of HELI and whether TCM medicines should be more strictly regulated in Europe. Conventional medical practitioners urge the European Commission and the member states to ensure that all medicinal products and procedures in the field of complementary medicine undergo appropriate quality, safety, and efficacy assessments in line with standardized testing procedures. A broad look at the factors influencing the safety of TCM medicines reveals three main areas. It's the patient, it's the provider or therapist, and the drug itself, of course. Regarding the therapists, we are in a happy situation that we are a partner clinic of the Beijing University of Chinese Medicine. So this team is a highly qualified team with doctors and pharmacists recruited directly from Beijing. This ensures that patients receive high-quality medical care and eliminates the risk of adverse drug reactions caused by inadequate training or incorrect medication prescriptions. Our clinic's patients are cared for by 6 German hospital doctors and 8 Chinese doctors. The team also includes a pharmacist. Overdosing on medication in the hope of a quicker recovery can likewise be rolled out. Regarding the patients, the greatest risk, I think, of all the drug-related side effects in the form of liver damage comes from the patient themselves. Liver damage can occur in different individuals, either directly as a result of hepatotoxic substances in a predictable, dose-dependent manner, or unpredictable and independently of dose. Incorrect use of TCM medicines by patients is more or less rolled out within the hospital setting. However, this does not apply to post-discharge care involving TCM medicines. Regarding the drug itself, herbal medicines may be of poor or standardized quality in general. Similarly, contamination of the raw material or the addition of Western medicines is principally possible. But this doesn't fit for our setting. A further issue, of course, of herbs are herb interactions from herb to herb, from herb to drug, from herb even to food. To ensure the highest possible level of medicinal safety for our clinical patients, 3 different types of testing are carried out on an ongoing basis at the TCM clinic. Part 1 is the preclinical quality testing of all the drugs regarding to identity, purity, content, and harmful residuals. Part 2 is a conducting systematic survey of all patients regarding therapeutic adverse events upon discharge. And third, we have a routine laboratory monitoring of liver function tests before and after inpatient treatment. The TCM clinics herb-based have products mainly sourced from the People's Republic of China. Treatment with TCM herbs takes the form of decoctions made from raw material. Overall, TCM treatment also includes, of course, acupuncture, Chinese manual therapy, and Qigong. Western therapies are continued or prescribed as required. Details of medication prescriptions and all the specific TCM treatment methods, as well as the duration of treatment, are systematically documented in an electronic hospital record. Before being administered to patients, all herbal TCM products delivered to the hospital undergo a very comprehensive preclinical drug control program carried out by German and Chinese drug control centers and companies. Only scientifically proven methods are employed for this purpose, including HPLC analysis, colored TLC plates, and botanical authentication based on monographs. This approach aims to ensure that only quality-tested medicines with a high degree of authenticity are used in a treatment, thereby reducing the risk of potential botanical counterfeits. Furthermore, the purity of the products is guaranteed. The concentrations of various heavy metals, aflatoxin, microbial contaminations are carefully measured to ensure compliance with permissible limit values. This means that contaminated medicinal substances can be ruled out before they are prescribed to patients for clinical use. All herbal TCM products are also tested for microbial contamination and solvent residues. This slide provides an overview of the purity tests carried out between 2000 and 2025. The tests conducted between 2000 and 2010 reveal a high number of rejected and blocked medicinal substances patches, for example, those found to be substandards in terms of quality and purity. Cadmium contamination was particularly notable among the heavy metals shown here during this period. I'm sorry I don't have a screwer. Currently, lead contamination in TCM medicines has decreased. You can see it. However, in recent years, there has been an increase in the rejection of medicines due to pesticide contamination. The monographs essential for quality assurance of TCM medicinal substances were previously compiled and published in collaboration with the Institute of Pharmaceutical Biology at the Ludwig Maximilian University of Munich by Professor Wagner with the assistance of our clinic. The second part of the investigations involves an ongoing survey of all patients at the end of their inpatient stay. They are asked to describe any possible undesirable therapeutic effect in a free-form written narrative. The 23 example clearly shows that a high proportion of respondents, that is 50.2%, or 440 out of 824 patients reported an adverse therapeutic effect. The largest group of adverse events, with 184 reports, consists of gastrointestinal complaints and symptoms. Pain was reported as the second most common complaint, followed by tiredness and exhaustion. Overall, these are predominantly non-specific symptoms such as intolerance to bitter tasting decoctions and exacerbation of wide range of psychosomatic symptoms. Specific indications of liver damage are often not clinically detectable. In this sample of 2023, there was no case of highly occurred. If we compare this with a group of patients which suffered on liver injury, there is not really a difference between the symptoms. So it's really a very unspecific picture of clinical symptoms. Maybe the presence of the jaundice is maybe one symptom which is very typical for highly. The third part of the study concerns routine laboratory monitoring of liver function tests upon admission and discharge for all hospital patients. Upon admission, hospital doctors carry out a full physical examination and record the patient's medical history. In the 3 days prior to discharge, the presence of liver damage is reassessed by measuring serum ALT and AP levels in n times of upper limit of normal. This ongoing investigation is protocol-based and in terms of methodology corresponds to a prospective hospital-based observational study. Suspected liver injury is defined as serum ALT levels at least 5 times higher than the upper limit of normal in patients with normal ALT levels on admission. Similarly, elevated serum AP levels of at least twice the ULN in patients with normal AP levels on admission are also classified as liver damage. By calculating the ratio of the two values, NLAT and NAP, the type of liver damage can also be defined, such as hepatocellular, cholestatic, or a mixed liver damage. Hepatocellular is the most common pattern of liver injury. During the study period from 1994 to 2015, a total of 21,896 patients were admitted to hospital and treated with herbal traditional Chinese medicines. Of these patients, 426 had elevated ALT levels on admission. These patients were excluded from the study, representing 1.9% of the total. Consequently, 21,470 patients met the inclusion criteria for the TCM study cohort. Of these patients, 95.94%, means 20,600, had ALT levels within the normal range during the TCM treatment. However, in 733 patients, that means 3.41%, herbal therapy led to abnormal ALT levels, means 1 to 2 times upper limit normal, and in 111 patients, that means 0.51% to levels of 2 up to 5 times higher than upper limit normal. And only in 26%, that means 0.12%, reached the level more than 5 times upper limit normal. The latter group met our inclusion criterion for highly group. Fortunately, the liver enzyme levels of all patients, with one exception, returned to normal or near normal levels after discontinuing or completing TCM treatment. Even the patient whose level remained very elevated after his hospital stay recovered somewhat later. In principle, the assessment of patients' cases involving liver damage must be carried out with great care, as establishing causality about TCM drugs that trigger liver damage is very difficult. Many factors can influence causality. Co-medication, for example, combinations with other herbal or synthetic medicines that are potentially hepatotoxic, may have occurred. Similarly, although unlikely in our setting, it is theoretically possible that the preparations may have been adulterated with Western medicines to enhance or achieve efficacy. The RUCAM, that means Russell-Yucliffe Causality Assessment Method, this model was used to assess causality with regard to the herbal TCM preparations and synthetic medicines administered currently in all 26 cases of liver damage within our study cohort. The RUCAM model comprises a wide range of questions that are important for ruling out certain medicinal herbs or potential triggers of liver damage. Case identification includes, among other things, age, gender, diagnosis, pre-existing conditions, treatment with herbal TCM, and of course conventional medicines. Progression of laboratory values and all adverse or medical events during the hospitalization. Based on this complicated RUCAM model, causality for TCM herbs was classified as probable in 8 of 26 patients, possible in 16 of 26, and ruled out in 2 cases. TCM herbs were rarely administered as single preparations, but mostly as mixtures of several herbs. This resulted in a total of 35 different TCM medicines being administered to the patients during their 4-week stay. The daily dose was about 95 grams, which was slightly higher than in the TCM study cohort. Of the numerous TCM herbs taken by the 26 patients with liver damage, Puploria radix and Scutaria radix were the 2 most frequently associated drugs with liver damage, although causality assessment based on the RUCAM score is varied. The following conclusion can be drawn. In 26 patients means 0.12% of the 21,470 patients treated with herbal TCM medicines, liver damage was detected with ALT levels higher than 5 times upper limit normal. These levels returned to normal shortly after treatment was discontinued. Herb-induced liver injuries, HELI, is a rare adverse event occurring at a rate of more than 1 to 1,000 to smaller than 1 from 100 at the TCM hospital in Bad Kötzting, Germany. Using the RUCAM system, causality was classified as probable for TCM herbs in 8 out of 26 patients. Poploida radix and Scutaria radix were the 2 TCM herbs most frequently suspected of causing liver damage, despite the low number of cases of liver damage attributed to TCM medicines. The development of effective prevention strategies and improvement in the safety of herbal medicines should be given even greater priority in the interest of global public health in future. The rarity of cases of liver injury found in our study mainly comes because we have a very prospective rather than a retrospective study approach. Also, the valid exclusion of pre-existing liver diseases before the start of therapy might be an important factor. Hospital-based treatment was also provided by very specialized trained TCM physicians from Germany and China. The use of high-quality TCM herbal products ascertained by appropriate analysis. Therapy was only 19.5 days, avoiding prolonged treatment, and the inclusion criteria was, as you remember, ALT more than 5 times ULN, and this is more or less very strong. There are other working groups who say that they would suggest 3 times higher than the upper limit normal is already an inclusion criteria for liver injury. Assessment of causality using RUCAM and determining of ALT levels following discontinuation of herbal TCM therapy might one more factor that these results are very good for TCM. Many thanks for your attention.
Thank you, Professor Melcher, for the presentation, leading us to have a deeper understanding of the German landscape of the field. So we are delighted to have Professor Lau to be on stage again to present the Appreciation Award for the Professor. Thank you.
Okay, so our next speaker is Professor T. Ken Keung. Professor T is the director of the Traditional and Complementary Medicine Center at Utah, Malaysia, which is one of the largest traditional and complementary medicine clinical centers in the country. He holds the associate professor status and dual fellowship distinctions and served as a member of the Traditional and Complementary Medicine Council under the Ministry of Health of Malaysia. He is also an active advocate for traditional and complementary medicine internationalization and also education development across the ASEAN region, with a focus on evidence-based practice and policy integration. So let's join me to give a warm welcome to Professor T.
Very good afternoon. 大家晏晝好。I will use Mandarin 中文 for this presentation. The first I would like to 首先我要感谢香港特区政府卫生署还有香港中医院邀请我这次来参加这个会议。我觉得这个会议还是非常重要的，因为我觉得这是一个全新的课题，让所有人对这个不管是中医药还是现代医学都有一个新的一个接触的点哦。那我今天呢简单开一个场是这样子的，可能这样的一个环境一个60几岁的患者，他有高血压，也有冠心病，对吧？吃着高血压药，也吃着这个我们什么阿司匹林或者其他他汀类的药，都在吃这些药。同时呢，我本身也是中医师也是在看病，来找你看病，我觉得这个情景是不会太陌生嘛，对吧？都是这样子的我们经常会做这个事情。但是在马来西亚是这样子的，中医师规定在写病历的时候，你必须把病人的西医药写在你的病历，尽可能他吃什么药你就写在你的病历，但是从来没有要求西医把病人吃的什么中药写在他的病历里面，这是一个完全不一样的情况所以中医一般知道病人在吃什么西药，西医就不一定知道病人在吃什么中药，所以这个是一个我们要解决的问题，这也是这个委员会成立的时候一个教育，我觉得非常关键的一个地方，如何同时教育好中医可以去做这个事情。当然，中医有的时候有 side effect， 中医也不敢去报。国家有这个side effect 的这个系统一般都是政府的。在医院里面的会做这事情，私人界可能很少去报，所以在马来西亚大多数的中医都是私人界的，我们很少会用这个系统去汇报用了中药以后它出现什么情况，所以这个是一个现实的问题所以那病人要知道，我同时吃中药，同时吃西药安不安全，到底有没有效？这个其实是我们很多做科研的，我都要去回答这个问题好，接着我们看了，当然我今天讲几个事情，挑战、机遇还有我们的未来方向。首先挑战呢，我会一一的讲还有机遇，还有我们这个未来挑战这个都是一个总结点。那我慢慢的跟大家分享首先挑战有什么挑战呢？首先第一个挑战，我们可以发现到很多时候我们在做这个研究的时候，大多数都是在实验室里面做，对吧？那我们病人用药，大多数都是自己用药，病人可能自己用药，或者是病人不告诉医生自己用药，像那个尼日利亚的专家说我们在实验室里面这个捉破头脑去做研究，但是病人自己就随便用了，对吧？中药西药用在一起，所以这个首先是一个我们可能缺乏真实世界的这个情况，我们可能要回到研究真实世界它到底是一个什么情况，我们使用真实世界的数据去做科研，可能会得到更加好的一个反馈当然就是一个方法不一样。我们知道这个中药的剂量，中医师记录西药是很容易的，西药名称一写，对吧？一天服用多少次？你要西医去记录中药，可能中医没学好，中医自己要记录中药都很困难，对吧？君臣佐使，所以这个都很困难。所以中医它开处方，一个处方开几味药，每一味药的剂量，对吧？这些都是会造成非常大的一种很困难去做这个事情。当然，我们这个可以解决，怎么解决呢？现在我们有 HIA 系统，我们电子病历系统，电子病历系统已经可以很好的记录所有我们这些开药的处方了。第三个呢，我们过度报道什么呢？过度报道阴性不好的东西。我们经常说吃了中药以后，肝损伤、肾损伤。我们很少听到什么新闻说，中药西药吃了以后呢，我的病更加快好了。这就是一个在报道的情况下呢，我们可能会迷失方向。我们可能注重了安全性，但是忽略了什么呢？两个之间的有效性。所以可能在未来，我们是不是可以从有效性报道更加多的有效性，去鼓励传统医药跟西医之间的互相去协同去作用，让这个不管是中药还是西药让它真效，让它完全体现，让病人获得更加好的东西。这个就是一个阴性或者是不好的事情，老是被提起，而且新闻特别喜欢报道什么呢？报道这些所有什么肝损伤、肾损伤的事情，新闻就特别喜欢报道这个事情。可能我们在舆论都需要有 education， 教育他们去怎么做报道。我觉得这是一个很关键的一些事情啊。在我们看啊，中医师，我也可能是患者，那我可能去找西医，可以搞中医。我们知道啊，像我刚才说的啊，大多数是中医知道病人在吃什么西药。当然，有些中医也不想知道病人吃什么西药，他觉得很烦，对吧？我知道了，知道了也不知道干嘛，对吧？所以他可能也不理解。但是对于现代比较好的中医师，他会去考虑这个事情。甚至我们在面对开处方的时候，尤其在运动员，马来西亚有很好的运动员，你们知道是谁吗？李宗伟啊，badminton player， 李宗伟有一度被禁赛，为什么禁赛啊？据说啊，有人让他吃什么呢？吃了冬虫夏草，然后去参加比赛的时候，结果药检不通过。就是说提醒我们中医师，尤其是问我们的病人，你是不是运动员？如果说他是运动员，那他感冒，你要小心，你要不要开麻黄给他？如果你开了麻黄，他明天去比赛，他的药检不过关，他不是因为他去吃了麻黄碱，因为你帮他开了麻黄给他。所以现在中医师也需要具备这样的一些知识，否则也要害了这个病人。所以病人的这个我们都要理解啊。西医刚才我说了非常困难，他不知道中医是病人看什么。在马来西亚一些情况下，有些西医讲，你是我的病人啊，你吃中药是吗？你下次不要来看我了。有这样的西医啊，一个他不想告诉西医，可能告诉西医，西医不继续看病。第二个，也不是说西医不好啊。第二个，病人认为中医药是 natural product， 没有任何伤害，我不需要告诉医生，这也可能，对吧？第三个，他可能愿意告诉病人，告诉医师，西医师可以接受，这是比较少的情况下啊。这个极少部分的西医他可能可以接受，但是我们一般都是鼓励中西药呢，不要在同样时间吃，可能最好隔4个小时，不能隔4个小时就隔2个小时，对吧？尽量避免他们在同样时间起作用啊。所以这个也是一个真实的情况。那因此我觉得这个时候来讨论这个事情啊，我觉得挺好的啊，让大家啊，尤其是我们未来也可能变成病患，对吧？我们也同样面对同样问题，我们也要得到底我一起用，到底是好的多还是坏的多？所以我们需要回答这些问题啊。那我们看到马来西亚人口70%左右了用过传统医药，我们这个是比较早前的调查啊，2009年，在这个70% 里面呢，有接近90%，87.3%是用什么呢？跟草药有关系的，它可能用中药，有可能用印度医学的药，有可能是本地的草药来使用啊。所以这个比例还是蛮多了，有的是用来什么呢？来解决健康问题，有的来什么呢？来保健，所以都使用了很多中药。所以这个说明什么呢？其实在民间是非常多人是在使用草药的，他同时可能在用这个西药啊。所以因此呢，我们必须要做非常多的事情。那我现在是 UDA Traditional and Complementary Center 传统与辅助医药这个医疗中心。我们知道非常感谢香港香港是全世界最早应该说通过立法去管理中医的，新加坡也是一个比较早的。马来西亚是2016年，我们有传统与辅助医药法令，中国中医药法令是2017年，所以有了这些法令呢，我们就可以很好的、安全的做中医药的治疗。那我这个中心呢，每1个月大概有4000到5000的人次，有一半的人超过50岁以上。这50岁以上，他原来就很多慢性疾病，高血压、高血脂，各种各样，所以其实他们都使用的西药了。那我们可以用什么呢？真实世界的这数据去研究。到底是怎么回事？那我个人呢，也有一些病人吃了2、3种西药、降压药，这个血压也没降下来。那再加上中药呢，他的血压就偏于稳定了这就是真实世界给我们的反馈。当然也有一些是吃了以后不好的，也有这个东西。那中医师可能要更加诚实的去承认吃了不好有什么副作用，同时也大家都应该去互相承认。2个吃了以后有好的东西，也应该被记录起来，应该去广泛的做宣传。这就是一个这个我觉得是挺重要的事情机遇，我们有机遇吗？当然我觉得有每个月上千人数，我们有像传统的华人的医学就是中医，我们还有印度医学，还有马来医学。除了华人看中医， 还有印度人看中医，还有马人看中医，各种各样的人看中医。所以这样的一个数据，应该说给予这样的一个观察，我觉得它可能有一定的跟中国大陆或者香港完全是不一样的一种信息的一个分享啊。再来，我们这个多学科的，我们会把病人转介给西医。西医有一些在做手术不能做手术的患者，尤其是骨质疏松很厉害的患者不能做手术，也把病人转给中医。转给中医的时候，我们一开始会用比较传统的，比如针灸推拿，可能过了一段时间会用中药，就给他吃中药了。所以这个也是一个互相共同做的事情啊。当然，我们有一个 HIS Hospital Information System， 这很重要。我们任何输入，我们就可以被抓到啊。当然，我们这个是真实世界，我们并不是在实验室里面。我们病人都来，每天都有各种各样的病人来，我们就使用这个数据来反馈病人真实情况、病人的病情的复杂性、病人的使用药物的复杂性，再加上中药，我们可以得到一个比较好的真实世界的一个数据啊。使用真实世界数据来做相关研究，可以得到一个更加好的一个内容啊。我们有方法吗？当然有，我们有电子病历、EMI 这些都有了，我觉得很好。再来就是 AI。这个也很方便了。刚才前面左教授介绍了 AI， 我觉得也挺好啊。大家互相借鉴，看使用 AI， 然后使用 AI 来处理所有的信息，然后把它读出来这个我觉得方法已经有了。如果说回到30年前，这个可能是很困难。那现在呢，应该说这个难度越来越低了。只要不管中医西医愿意在你的电子病历输入相关信息，它都可以得到未来把这个信息重新挖掘。重新做研究，可能得到一个更加好的结果哦。好，我们说这个有特点吗？当然有特点啊。我们专家们都有很多，在中国大陆都是中西结合的，在香港不一样，香港跟马来西亚跟香港有很大的一样性，我们都是英殖民，对吧？马来西亚也一样，所以有2套法律来管理不同的西医跟中医，我们都是一样的啊。我们的中医也是不能开西药啊。开西药也是犯法的啊，因为法律没有给我们这个责任啊。我们现在也不能开检查，血象检查也不行，所以我们卫生部在改pathology regulation， 允许传统医师可以开简单的一个血象检查，但是我们也考虑到基因检查可能我们就不开了，因为基因检查牵涉的太复杂了，但是基本的我们还是可以开，就这样的情况这个是我觉得那东南亚呢也不一样了在马来西亚很多华人都用中药、草药，那除了华人，还有泰国医学、印度尼西亚的医学，然后我们再往西边走，印度有阿育吠陀、Yoga、Unani、Homeopathy、Siddha Medicine， 所以他们有各种各样的传统医学。这些传统医学都使用草药，所以我觉得可能在除了中国、香港以外呢，东南亚的介入可以提供更加多丰富的这个材料这就是一个多元一个生态的一个，我们有特别一个良好的机遇第3未来方向呢，我觉得这个组成这样的一个非常好首先我们可以有一个统一的这个方法去报告草药与西药之间的一个方式。我们有最基础的，对吧？一个国际化最基础的，同时也要能适应本地，因为本地可能有卫生署不同的要求，对吧？也可以让本地去增加一些东西可以就这样的情况第2个呢，真实世界我们需要去推这个真实世界的一个情况。我本身也在做新冠肺炎的这个，当时推动马来西亚线上看诊，其中有一个 case。如果你是中医，你知道我们感冒，对吧？我们用什么呢？银翘散，对吧？银翘散用了很多。有一天，卫生部的一个医院的医生给我打电话，他说 ：“Dr. D， 我一个70多岁的患者，我们发现他肾损伤了。”我说：“现在有什么问题吗？”我怀疑你给他吃的银翘散导致他肾损伤。好，那我就告诉我用什么，就银翘散，我就让你知道我只用银翘散。好，银翘散我们知道，中医看病，感冒我们会吃几天？最多吃1个星期，对吧？那个我们也老实，我说银翘散，西医过后也没给我们打电话了。所以西医一直都以为中药会导致这些损伤，中医我们认为 我应该没什么损伤啊，我们都吃那么多，谁吃1个礼拜的这个银翘散这颗肾损伤，那不是到处人都是肾损伤，对不对？所以这个是信息不对称，对吧？中医我们认为没问题，西医可能认为有问题，所以这之间其实有很多存在不对称的东西，所以应该2个之间都要去做教育啊。所以这个推进真实世界，我觉得这个是我们还是要去做的事情，因为我们真的是不管在哪一个国家，这些数据真的太多了，只不过我们用什么方式抓取这数据的内容去做这个东西啊。当然把我们这个草药跟西药之间的这作用呢，纳入中西医的教学核心内容里面，这很重要。中医要承认，腹泻也可能是一个副作用，对吧？腹痛刚才看了，对，是个副作用。我们去认真去做报告。同时，西医也不能抗拒我们中医，因为现实社会就是很多人同时使用西药跟中药，我们不能抗拒的东西，可能要学习中药怎么分类。虽然你没办法把所有一个方子写下来，但是你至少知道这个病人目前使用的中药的解表药，还是补益药，还是什么药，至少他学习的东西，他可以做一个简单的记录啊。最后呢，我觉得这个也是很重要的啊，一个我们必须要加上我们的科研、教育，还有这个政策各种各样。你看，我们必须要有临床，我们有政策，我们需要科研，我们需要教育，通过这个4大支柱去发展、去推广这个草药跟现代药物作用的一些观察。我甚至觉得我们中医要有19位18反，我们可以把西医药看成其中一种中药，用这种思路在做研究。可能某个西药巴拉塞达莫对于什么中药它存在19位18反可能也是一个思路，把它看成类似一种中药去做研究啊。这个是好。回到那个第一个故事啊，所以这个病人吃他汀类的aspirin 或者降压药，所以我们要回到那个问题，他加上中药到底是对他的病情越来越好，还是会导致他病情变坏了？所以我们通过真实世界，通过我们真实世界的数据来反馈给我们，然后反馈给我们。我们今天在讨论consensus statement， 如果我们有办法让这些知道各个地区多中心的反馈都是正向的话，我们可以做一个 consensus statement， 就告诉所有人这样的方法是对病人是有利的。好，我的演讲到这里，谢谢。
谢谢 Professor Ted. So thank you for your presentation. Please remain on stage with us, and we are happy to have Professor Lau to present the Appreciation Award again. Thank you.
Okay, let's move on to the next speaker. Our next speaker is Dr. Raymond Wong. Dr. Raymond Wong is the head of the Integrated Chinese and Western Medicine Treatment Safety Center in Hong Kong Poison Control Center. He is also a consultant of the Prince of Wales Hospital Poison Treatment Center and also honorary clinical professor at the Department of Medicine and Therapeutics of the Chinese University of Hong Kong. Dr. Wong has been playing a pivotal role in toxicology and also clinical pharmacology in the public hospital system in Hong Kong. He is currently the chairman of the expert panel on medication decision support, advisor of the Drug Advisory Committee, and member of the Drug Management Committee on Chinese Medicines. So without further ado, let's give a warm welcome to Dr. Raymond Wong.
Thank you very much, Professor Lau, for the very kind introduction. Good afternoon, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to thank the organizer for giving me the opportunity to deliver this presentation. So I'm going to share with you our work in the Integrated Chinese and Western Medicine Treatment Safety Center in Hong Kong. Our story actually started about 12 years ago, when in Hong Kong, the public hospital system actually launched a pilot program of treating our patients with both Chinese medicine and also Western medicine. So in the past, our public hospital mainly focused on giving the patient Western medicine. So but about 12 years ago, a pilot program was started, which we now put the two things together, at least in some specific disease group. So of course, when new programs start, there's also some concern, especially from Western medicine practitioners, about the safety of this Chinese medicine and also the interaction between the herbs and the drugs. So at that time, we have established an expert panel, which I was a member of this expert panel under this task force for this pilot program. So we actually had the first meeting exactly similar to 12 years ago, and we worked together and we built up guidelines. We evaluate all the traditional Chinese medicine being used under this program. And then we see if there's any sort of signal or any problems that we need to alert our frontline clinicians. So over the years, this program has expanded very rapidly. From initially, a few centers, now you can see many, many centers in Hong Kong. We are serving a huge number of patients, and patients welcome that. In a number of disease areas, they like that because a lot of time, Western medicine definitely have the limitation. So Chinese medicine should definitely help them. So in association with the expansion of this program, our sort of our work in terms of enhancing the treatment safety has also progressed. So apart from just looking at herbal safety and also the herb-drug interaction, we have also expanded our scope to other sort of treatment used by the Chinese medicine practitioner. For example, acupuncture. So we have a few years back, we've established a guidelines telling our practitioners so whether there's any precaution that they need to take. For example, if they want to do acupuncture in a patient while receiving antithrombotic treatment, that could be aspirin, that could be the anticoagulations, et cetera, And in 2023, and beforehand, with this sort of expert panel has been established under the task force for this integrated medicine program. But starting in 2023, we actually repositioned this sort of expert panel and all our work to be under the Hong Kong Poison Control Center for very good reason, because under this sort of integrated Chinese and Western medicine program in the public hospital setting, everything is very well regulated. Okay, you have protocol, you have system controlling everything. But in the real world, things could get a little bit complex. Okay, just to share you two stories. I'm a clinical hematologist, so I treat all the patients, all kinds of patients, including patients with blood cancers. So I use a lot of chemotherapy, the newer targeted agents, anything, funny things you can think of, okay? The problem is that when we treat this patient, unfortunately, we make them sick before we make them feel better. So when they are sick, they go next door. So obviously they will go for alternative medicine treatment to make them feel better because our drug make them feel worse, okay? So I always tell my colleagues, okay, I believe every single patient which I'm treating are taking some form of herbal medicine. The only difference is whether they're brave enough to tell me or not. Second story, I'm also working as a clinical toxicologist. And every single day, I receive more referral or consultation related to herbs than I receive patients coming to the hospital with poisoning. So you can see how common this problem is in Hong Kong. So we take it out because we want to serve a bigger group of people. Apart from focusing on the integrated program, we want to expand to a greater scope to cover every patient in Hong Kong, okay, which may benefit from our knowledge and our experience with that. And we're dealing with a much bigger scope of problem. So we have developed a clinical practice guidelines. So earlier, Professor Chang and also Professor Lee has shared the database and also their work. Beautiful work, excellent. But we believe our work is also a little bit unique because I'm a clinician, so I mainly focus on the patient. So our initiative is actually to develop a really clinically focused guidelines, and I'm going to share with you the details. So we of course, it's evidence-based. We identify all the evidence. We mainly focus on human, okay? And we're making it very pragmatic, okay? Very practical, okay? And I'm going to show you. I'm sure that you can't even find a single redundant word in our sort of concise guideline. So we collaborate with all the colleagues that we think could be helpful, okay? Including sort of traditional Chinese medicine practitioner, all our pharmacists, okay? Chinese and Western pharmacists, and also all our sort of Western medicine specialists who are relevant to our work. So we have developed sort of our workflow, okay, algorithm, you can see, from searching the data to filtering them, to summarizing them, okay, and then all the way putting up to our expert panel, okay, to sum up all this information and putting up very specific recommendations. So this is just a graphical form of what we are doing. So you can see that we have a core team of Chinese medicine and also Western pharmacists led by Mr. Timothy Yong, who is among the audience. And we search all the relevant database. And then we filter, okay? And then we summarize. And it's very important to filter all this signal because a lot of this signal, to be honest, they're junk. So we basically mainly focus on human evidence. And in our work, we focus on two things. Apart from herb-drug interaction, we also look at adverse reaction. The important thing is that they are too closely related. When you talk about herb-drug interaction, a lot of time you worry about the safety. Now, of course, on the other hand, you worry about that when they interact, maybe you reduce the efficacy of some of these agents. But to a broader sense, this could also be an adverse event because it's not an intended one. And then we put it up into sort of using a sort of risk stratification matrix that we design. You can see, you can call it a traffic light system, okay? Because it's red, yellow, and green. So what do we do? So based on the level of evidence and the quality of study, so we classify, okay, all these signals we identify to be high risk, moderate risk, or low risk. Of course, there's another category, no risk identified. So what do we do? In terms of level of evidence, I think everyone of you know that when we look at that, we look at whether there's any randomized control trial, whether there's any meta-analysis. But unfortunately, in this area, whether you're talking about herbal safety or whether you're talking about herb-drug interaction, unfortunately, as you heard the previous speaker, a lot of this evidence are actually very scattered. There may be case report, okay, a case series, okay. A lot of time, there may be a lot of confounding. So it's actually very important to really evaluate them in detail. And more importantly, we look at the quality, okay? Professor T has also talked about the quality of a lot of this data. And in fact, we identified a lot of this very interesting case report. Someone actually bought kilograms of an herb, boiled with a chicken, take the whole pot of things, and then got some funny problem. And then you're looking at that, yeah, this is a very important signal. But it may not be that relevant to the practice because we are using the herbs in usually and recommended dose rather than putting kilograms of herbs in one single pot and then drink them all, okay? So this is actually, so we grade according to this quality. And we also look at the severity of reactions, okay? Whether that's life-threatening or that's just very mild problem. And then we collect all this information, we go through the expert, and then we get all the input from all our team of experts together. So what do we do with different risk category? We do things quite differently. For example, if you talk about really high-risk category of things, we'll put up very specific recommendation defining which at-risk population you shouldn't put the patient on these herbs or, in other words, the Western medicine, because we treat them equally, okay? We're not biased against anything. So we will say that, okay, not to be used together with certain drugs or herbs or other things. And we will also recommend specific monitoring if needed. For the less serious risks, you can see that we're a little bit sort of less stringent regarding a recommendation. We also put up specific monitoring or any symptoms or any particular investigation that you need to do. And so when everything sums up, then we put it up to the expert panel. And this is actually the most important team that I've been working with. So you can see that we have a multidisciplinary team. So very importantly, we have our team of core pharmacists who summarize all the data, share with us. And we have, a team of clinical toxicologists. And also, I'm a clinical pharmacologist by training. So I take up the role as a hematologist, clinical pharmacologist, and a clinical toxicologist. But we also have clinical specialists from, other important specialties. And we're expanding this team. Okay, when we cover more and more systems, we're expanding them. And we are very fortunate because we rely on the resources of the hospital authority. In the hospital authority, we have more than 7,000 doctors. So it's very easy that we can find a team of experts interested in this area, have experience, and they can give us very important advice. And more important, and on the right side, there's also a very important sort of team of people, our academic experts, including Professor Zhou here. And I'm very happy to tell you that in this organization, in this team, we have representatives from all the School of Pharmacy. We have 2 in Hong Kong. We have representatives from all the School of Chinese Medicine, okay, sitting down together. So you can see we have actually the best team, I'm sure, in the world. So let me share with you some simple examples. Thank you. Oh, so let me share with you some simple examples, okay? So to illustrate how complex our work potentially be. This is Chang-erzi, okay? This is one of the pretty much common herbs that we use in, by the Chinese medicine practitioner. Now we know that this herb is toxic, okay? We have a lot of report. And even if you read the sort of the local sort of booklet from the Department of Health, you know there's a lot of toxicity. But the important things about Chinese medicine is that it's not as simple as the drug tablet that we buy from the pharmacy. Because this herb could be fresh, unprocessed, it could be dry, unprocessed, and it could be processed. And you know the level of toxicity, the ingredient could change. And so all the interaction could potentially be different. Okay, in Hong Kong, obviously, we have some regulation. We know some of these unprocessed dangerous herbs will not be available, okay, as illustrated in the lecture this morning. Some will be well regulated. So in our work, what we did is that we actually collect all the information. You can see that last year we performed the analysis. We actually summarized that there are 289 cases being reported in 54 studies. So we went through them. And another important thing is that more related to symposium today is the herb-drug interaction. And this is the interesting part I'm going to share with you. So if you look at all this sort of case report, case series, and also studies, you know that it's very convincingly demonstrated that it has clear adverse effect signal in the cardiovascular system, the liver, the kidney, and also for the brain. But more importantly is that there's been a lot of database telling you that they reported there are some alerts about the potential herb-drug interaction, okay? But when we look at that, a lot of that's put up as major. But when we look at that, all these sort of reports, everything in very much detail, well, we find that number one, we confirm all the toxicity. So you can see that this is the highest level of alert, red light, okay? When we give you a red light, that means contraindicated in some patient, at least in some patient. Here we say that patient with liver, kidney problem, and also pediatric patients, okay? And we also, in our organization, we do put up some additional restriction that if the dose actually is exceeding the recommended dose, you need a countersign, okay? To make sure that there's actually a checker confirming that this use is justified. The interesting thing is about the herb-drug interaction, okay? You see, we leave it blank. Because when we look at all this signal, it's actually not really herb-drug interaction, because either the herb or some drugs could already got liver problem, already got cardiovascular problem. We look at all this detail. We don't believe that there's any important signal, strong signal, telling that this drug has interaction with this herb. Okay, so you see that we don't put up any recommendation here. We say there's no identified risk. Another example, Professor Zhou has mentioned briefly about this Weizi. Okay, this is actually from the Schisandra chinensis. So the story is that if you look at even, for example, up to date, which is commonly used by the doctors in Hong Kong, especially in the hospital authority, you can find that, wow, there's actually, you type in Schisandra, they give you a lot of this drug interaction signal. Now the problem is that Schisandra is not a single species herb. You can see there's a number of subspecies, okay? And up to date, basically lump them all together. But we don't think that this is the right way. So what we did is that we did a more complicated kind of work, okay? So we start from species differentiation. So you can see that we actually look at, getting all the literature search, okay, doing all this, and we distinguish between different, okay, Schisandra. For example, you have the Schisandra chinensis, you have the other one, which in Chinese we call it this is called Weizi. Okay, and so we got a little bit, we got very much detail about all these sort of species differentiation, including the references, the reference standards, the content, etc., etc. And then what we do is that we then go on. Sorry, so we lost the. I think we lose some of this, and then we go on to. Oh, sorry, I lost the. And then we go on to look at the herb-drug interaction landscape, and we did clearly identify that there's been some very strong signal about, for example, with cyclosporine, with some other drugs, okay, and also with midazolam, okay. They have very clear report. They illustrated very beautifully sometimes in the control trial setting, telling us the interaction. But of course, we expand to the other area because we now understand that these herbs actually interact with the other drug through specific mechanism of action. And so apart from these drugs, there may be other drugs which when they go through this same pathway, may actually have the same herb-drug interaction. So we actually go through all this detail and actually go through in very much detail. Unfortunately, this should be a cartoon telling you how much work we have done, but unfortunately, it doesn't play very well. So what we have done is that it's different from all the other database of what you can search. We classify very clearly individual herb species, and we tell you exactly there are different risk rating because the evidence tells us that they are not the same, okay? And we also put up very different recommendation. And also in terms of herb-drug interaction, because it actually ran through one of the different metabolism system, the CYP3A4 enzyme. So with that background, we now actually list groups of drugs which also go through the same pathway. And we highlight to our clinician that when you put the patient on that kind of drugs, you should also be alert about this. So you can see that. So throughout the last 12 years, we have appreciated how complex this could potentially be and how limited information is available in the world. So this could also be related to, different species. It could actually be related to the limited human evidence. And you can also see sometimes when you read a lot of this case report, there will be a lot of confounding factors. And more importantly, the dosage that is involved, we need to look into that in detail. And also, sometimes we really need to differentiate whether it's actually a therapeutic effect, a beneficial effect, or really it's actually an adverse effect. So for every single herb, we went through this process. So the outcome is this clinical practice guideline. So again, as I illustrated, we adopted this traffic light system, okay, red, yellow, green. Okay, so just give you a few shots of what we recommend. So you can see that this is about adverse reactions, okay, or safety. Okay, you can see that we put up different color, highlighting to the clinician when the patient uses the particular herbs, what potential adverse effects you may encounter. And at least for those high risk, moderate risk, and also sometimes low risk, we also put up specific recommendation, what the clinician should do. For example, monitor for what specific kind of symptoms or signs, or do whatever investigations. Okay, for example, we recommend doing ECG monitoring for at-risk patient group in patients taking certain herbs, okay, because of risk of arrhythmia. So you can see that we make it extremely concise, okay? I'm sure that you can't find any single redundant word. If you find one, I buy you a dinner, for sure. This is the herb-drug interaction, okay? Again, you can see that we put up the herbs, we put up the drugs, and again, the traffic light system, and we tell you what potential effect it may result. And very specifically, you tell the clinician what to do. For example, we have some herbs which interact with warfarin. And warfarin, we know we have to monitor the iron out. So we are actually down to the specific level. We tell the clinician, measure the iron out once per week until you finish the herb at least 2 weeks, then you can stop, okay? So very specific, very practical, pragmatic, okay? Clinician can follow easily without any problem. So this is another way, we put it the other way, okay? So that you can start from the herbs, you can start from the drugs. So as I've mentioned, we've also put up another similar guideline, again, the traffic light system for those undergoing acupuncture when they are taking antithrombotic, antiplatelet, anticoagulants, etc. So since the establishment of this center, Treatment Safety Center, we basically have updated our search. We have actually expanded our system being covered. In the past, we only covered the heart, the liver, and the kidneys. Now we cover the brain as well. And more importantly, we have also do the sort of expand the number of herbs, and also we do the exercise. We will exercise, because a lot of these were done 10 years ago. And you can see that very important things I will also highlight in the table is that not only we add on alert, we add on things, we take away something, okay? For example, I also mentioned about, some of these experience. We have a case report 10 years ago, 15 years ago. And then while we're a bit cautious, so let's put that in. But 10 years later, when you go back, it's still the same single case report. It shouldn't be like that. If this is actually that common, it should occur. Again, someone should have reported that. So we review that, we think that, well, maybe this is not relevant. We take that away. So this is very important that's why we need a lot of expert input here. AI is very helpful. it could help us to summarize. But when you actually go to clinical decision, I don't think AI could replace us at this point in time. In the future, I don't know. So I'm extremely grateful, as I discussed that. I'm very extremely grateful and honored to work with this very strong team. Not only our team in the expert panel, but also our Western medicine pharmacists and also Chinese medicine pharmacists. I'm the only lucky guy who actually come here and present our work on behalf of all of them. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Dr. Wang, for his lively and profound presentation. And we are happy to have Professor Lau to present the certificate to Dr. Wang again. Thank you.
Okay, so we have our next speaker is from Nigeria. It's Professor Martins O. Emerji. Professor Emerji is a distinguished professor of drug delivery and nanomedicine. Professor Emerji was named the Pioneer Vice Chancellor of the European University of Nigeria in May 2022, and he was also elected as a Fellow of the African Academy of Sciences, AAS. Now, Professor Emerji was appointed by the World Health Organization as a member and also co-chair of the Strategic, Technical and Advisory Committee of Traditional Medicine, and he has also been inaugurated in Delhi during the WHO's second Global Traditional Medicine Summit in December 2025. So in this capacity, he leads the advisory group in the global drive for the development of traditional, complementary, and integrative medicine using the WHO Traditional Medicine Strategy 2025 to 2034 as the core. So without further ado, let's give a warm welcome to Professor Martins O. Emerji.
Thank you. So, good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, everyone. Okay, because where I come from, if somebody greets you, you respond. Thank you. Yes. Okay, so I have a very short time, so I'll try to be fast so that I don't see it's time now. Yes. And so, does anybody know the plant called Tabanante iboga? Tabanante iboga. Anybody in the audience? Tabanante iboga. There's a chemical compound isolated from it, because I want to use this too. There's a compound isolated from this plant called ibogaine that Donald Trump just signed an executive order that it should be studied worldwide and gave $50 million US, and the state of Texas also added $50 million US for studies because it has been discovered to be very useful, especially in the elderly in the United States of America. If you are not aware, please check it out. For more than 400 years, the people of Africa have been using that plant. In 2026, it has become a plant for the United States of America's president to sign an executive order for a compound from it to become a global drug of use. Food for thought. So, before my current position, I have been a scientist and I remain a scientist. I've been a scientist in the laboratory for about 22 years now. And I work in a research and development institution. And I now head the Nigeria's Agency for Natural Medicine. The agency is responsible for all forms of traditional, complementary, and integrative medicine. I don't like being told to stop, and I will not acknowledge those that make me speak. So I start with acknowledgement. These are my colleagues who I work with. From China to India to South Africa to Nigeria, and then to UCH London. I didn't just come here. Thank you for the invitation. So I didn't, it's not a crash into the event. I got an invitation, and thanks for the invitation. And this is where I currently work and colleagues that I work with. Okay. So I'm not going to dwell on this because I know a lot of you know you can write books on interactions. So I won't waste my time. So, but let me, because I'm going to have a kind of brief side talk on this presentation today, looking at it from the angle of a scientist, administrator, and policymaker. Having worked in the lab for over 20 years, and now administering research and working in national government, I have come to the conclusion that scientists, we have very big problem. And the problem is we think too highly of ourselves. Scientists who work in the lab, and because we do a lot of experiments and do discoveries and inventions, so we think too highly of ourselves. We think we know too much. We don't. We don't. Because you are as good as your results in the lab if they remain in the lab. If your results don't go out there to help people, then there was no need doing that studies in the first place. So there has got to be a way to communicate that result to the policymaker and the politicians who govern the country. Okay, and that is key. So I will look at it again from those perspectives. So reasons for help-drug interaction, we know them, so we won't dwell. The types of help-drug interaction, whether pharmacodynamically or pharmacokinetically, they are influenced, we know them. Many examples of help-drug interaction in literature, many examples. There are just many examples. How many of these studies that we have carried out in our laboratories, that when we go to conferences and meetings like this, we share, have we really converted them into policy documents for our governments to use in imparting the society? A lot of the times, we are also appointed, scientists are appointed from amongst us to governance positions. What happened to the results you had when you were in the lab? Did you forget about it? And when one of you is appointed the Secretary for Health in Hong Kong, do you still talk to him? Do you still have dinner with him to discuss policies that will make the results useful in the community, or is an opportunity to just declare the event open as a special guest and you clap and it goes back? Okay, so pharmacodynamics, I'm not going to have examples, like I said, a lot. So let me share with you some of the things that we have done. And in this, I'm going to show you, my colleague from Malaysia had a very dramatic presentation, and he was talking about using human beings. So I will show you results from animals. I'll also show you results from animals, from human beings. I'll show you results from the drugs we developed in the laboratory and pushed through the commercialization process and is now in public use, and a herbal medicine from herbal practitioners that is in the market, and what kind of interaction could occur. So first, these are three different herbal products developed by my agency: Nifedin, Niprisan, and Niprimar. Two are for sickle cell disorder. One is for malaria. Malaria is the most common disease in Nigeria. Nigeria has the highest burden in the world. Okay, so what is the effect of these drugs on pharmacokinetics of metronidazole in rats? Metronidazole is a very commonly used drug in Nigeria. So, like my last presenter colleague said, it is rare not to see someone who has not taken metronidazole before coming to the hospital. So we wanted to see what happens and look at what happened. The summary is that these three products increase the serum concentration of metronidazole. One of the anticycline agents increased the half-life of metronidazole. The absorption of metronidazole was impaired by that same drug, and the same product impaired the elimination of metronidazole. I'm sure we know the clinical implication of impairing the elimination. It means that there will be high serum concentration. Look at raw data. So THAF, metronidazole alone, and when used in combination with any of the herbal products, see the effect, compare THAF and absorption, including Cmax, compare with when they are combined. This is the first herbal drug in the world for management of sickle cell disease. It was registered by FDA US as an orphan drug. Everybody, and I'm talking of over 2.5 million, everybody who is on this anticycline drug takes paracetamol. So we wanted to know. Okay? Raw data on that shows mean pharmacokinetic profile of paracetamol when in human volunteers, when we did C, K, THAF, and Cmax. If you look at that, you see that, look at the p-values and the significant level that we do, and you notice that there were no significant changes in that. So sometimes too, we over-laboratize studies. We over-assume that because it is herbal product is dangerous. I think we should all calm down as scientists. There shouldn't be competition between Western medicine and traditional medicine. Absolutely no need for competition. Absolutely no need to quarrel. Absolutely no need for confusion. Don't even be angry, because you are not the owner. You are just a scientist. Even if you think you are the owner, all you did was to do a study. Okay? Let's think of the fact that what is the usefulness of your research in the community. And like my colleagues said, we all can, at one point or the other, are also patients. Every one of us is also a patient. How will you want to be taken care of by your doctor? And this is not about being a Western doctor or a traditional medical doctor. By the way, one of the things that I also tell our colleagues is that there are many things we need to learn. Those of us who have gone to the university, there are many things we need to learn from those who have not gone to the university. But we think we know more than them. Is not true. We only know more than them what we studied in the university. You see, what they what they have been doing for years, from observations, from intuitiveness. They know more than us. So when we come down and collaborate and work in partnership and together, then, and that is the approach we are using in order to implement the 2025 to 2034 WHO Global Traditional Medicine Policy. That is the approach. And I was telling them that we'll be calling many experts from across the globe, including some of you, on this area. Now look at this very quickly, that a typical African setting, and I'm showing you because no Western medicine can do this for us, including here in Hong Kong, or China, or India, or US, anywhere in the world, okay? So the best we can do as scientists is not to condemn, but to study. To study, you need to come to the level of this. How do you do it? What do you do? What's your reason? See, when people die, there's something we call autopsy, right? Right? There's something we call autopsy. But we can also do autopsy if we did not see the corpse. There are many people that die in the community outside healthcare facilities. And it is a public health importance, but we cannot get their corpses because they have been buried and probably decomposed. So we do what we call verbal autopsy. You go to the community to find out, to interact, to do surveys. Not every test is done in the test tube. So there are things that from verbal, okay, now I have 5 minutes. Okay, major clinical consequences are known, factors influencing all of these. These are some of the factors that, in our opinion, we are able to see in the course of our studies. So I'd like to go to some, okay, so ask about herbal medicine used routinely, document all herbal products, educate patients on possible interactions, monitor for adverse effects, consult interaction databases when necessary, are some of the ways we think prevention and management can occur. And this is not the exclusive knowledge of pharmacists, doctors, or public health specialists. No. Let us ask the people in our rural communities. You have been practicing, you are 75 years old. You have been practicing. The people in your rural communities, you have been giving them traditional medicine. Document what you get from them. Non-traditional solutions, in my opinion, include research prioritization, evidence, clinical studies, guidelines and protocols, GMP, good agricultural practice, quality control measures, advanced reporting system, and for us, it starts from good cultivation and collection practices. I took this picture from an Ayurvedic clinic in India, and that is traditional medicine. It is not capsule, it is not tablet, it is food. Are we hoping to do interaction studies with food? Is it possible that some of the things we think are adverse effects from the use of herbal products is actually the food you are eating every day that is giving you that problem, and you think is the 100 milligram, 1 gram of capsule you have taken? Because if you work in the lab with herbal raw materials, the quantity we use in the lab is far less than the quantity you are consuming in your restaurants. Okay, so policies, and I wanted to show you what policies are and how we try to standardize and make products right now, especially in my country, Nigeria, and the tools that we use. WHO has a lot of guidelines that are useful in this area at this time. All we need is to key. So for patients, inform, avoid, follow. For regulators, especially national regulatory authorities, strengthen herbal medicine regulation. Nigeria has one of the most stringent in the world. Improve pharmacovigilance systems. And then, let me conclude by saying, when it is about the drugs, the dosing regimen, the administration route, the pharmacokinetics and therapeutic all affect how interaction takes place. The species, the dose, the regimen of the herbs affect interaction. Patient's genetic, constitution, the gender, the age, and pathological state, physiological state, all of it affect drug interaction. Therefore, proper monitoring and communication can prevent outcomes. Finally, speak. Ensure that your research results get to politicians, that's a minister in Nigeria. Ensure that it proceeds to the highest, that's Vice President of Nigeria, and this is President of Nigeria. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Emeji. So please remain on stage, Professor, and we are pleased to have Professor Lau to present his certificate to you. Thank you.
Now we come to the last talk of this afternoon section, and for the next talk, we do have two speakers. So first, we have Dr. Lau Junwing. Dr. Lau is the Deputy Hospital Chief Executive, Western Medicine of the Chinese Medicine Hospital of Hong Kong. He oversees the Western Medicine Division, where he prioritizes the integration of Chinese medicine into clinical practice and actively supports research and educational initiatives in integrative healthcare. And we also have the second speaker is Ms. Helen Ho. She is the senior pharmacist at the Chinese Medicine Hospital of Hong Kong, and she leads the development and commissioning of Western medicine pharmacy services. Her current focus areas include establishing herb-drug interaction database and expanding the role of clinical pharmacists in integrated Chinese Western medicine practice and research. So let's give a warm welcome to Dr. Lau and Ms. Ho.
So to celebrate this joyful occasion for our two doctors and Ms. Helen Ho to present the presentation here, we take a group photo first.
Good afternoon. Thank you very much. So thank you for your very kind introduction. So let me introduce me again in greater details. I used to be a very a diligent and caring doctor. No worry, I still am. Diligent because I'm caring because when I was a physician and when I was an internal medicine physician and ICU physician, when a patient brings when I found abnormality in the lab test, and I'll ask about the drug history. And when I ask about the drug history and the patient would tell me he's taking herbal drugs, my immediate reaction is that, stop it, okay? So there's no problem of herb-drug interaction ever happened to me because I asked the patient to stop it. And if the patient came in the second time and if I asked him again, are you still taking the herbal drugs? He would say no, but actually he's still taking it. Yeah, that's the reality that Professor T told us. So until now, I'm in my position now in the Chinese Medicine Hospital. Eventually, I have to face up to the reality that I cannot ask my patient to stop the drugs. So let me, in the coming 5 minutes, I'll show you, I'll tell you what we are doing in the Chinese Medicine Hospital. Now, Chinese Medicine Hospital is a Chinese medicine practitioner-led hospital. So the chief physician is the Chinese medicine. So everybody coming in to our hospital must have a file with the Chinese medicine. And our role as the Western medicine doctors here is to, as their referral, okay? They find us only if they need us. For example, for resuscitation, and for infection control and all that. So in order to set up a platform to avoid herb-drug interaction, I have to translate all the scientific evidence in the literature into a really down-to-earth protocol for them to use, to follow. Because in the literature, if I search for a Chinese drug, I can input Chinese into it. Input Chinese, what I found is many pieces of Chinese literature, which is all written in Chinese. And the Western drug is written in Chinese, so I don't understand. And if I input English name for the Chinese drug, I don't know the English name for the Chinese drug. I have to do the translation first. So on either direction, it is difficult for us clinicians, so busy every day, to translate all this into our clinical practice. So this is why when I come here, I have to set up a platform with the Chinese medicine side, the clinicians, and also the pharmacist side, both the Western pharmacy and the Chinese pharmacy, and also the IT, to set up a little work group to prepare for the opening of our hospital. So our role is to assist in this HDI management. In our hospital, we have this down-to-earth work group, and we also have another administrative group taking care of overseas symposium and overseas interaction, and we certainly have an international consortium. So we have all these level of different things, but for a very frontline operation, we have to have this group to do this and establish our own database based on the international consensus, and have a system to regularly develop and review. Yeah, most systems after setup, they are just there for a decade or two without update. So we have to add new things and delete old things, and to formulate procedures and protocols and guidelines, and also do the necessary training, and to promote knowledge and with assistance with IT. We have to have IT now and with AI now, because we used to have only each patient have 1 to 5 drugs, but nowadays many patients have, 5, 10, or even 20 drugs. Well, of course, there's polypharmacists, that's not recommended. But the life is getting really complicated, so we have to have IT assistance in order to avoid incidents. For incidents, I mean, if we've already known there is interaction, but we mistakenly prescribe the drugs, that's a mistake, okay? This is unlike we prescribe drugs knowing that there's no known interaction. So this is our timeline. We have been in operation for around 7 months only. We started operation last year in December. So we have to have considered the governance structure, set up a database, and also have had some adjustment in our hospital information system, which our senior pharmacist, Ms. Helen Ho, is going to tell you. So thank you very much. I hand over the mic to Ms. Helen Ho. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Lau, and dear honorable guests, thank you for staying with us until the end of this section. I'm going to walk you through the HDI interaction initiatives in more details. Better use this. Okay. A key component of our work is to establish an evidence-based HDI database. The first step in this process is to define the criteria for inclusion. We focus on items that are relevant to our practice, that is those drugs on our formulary and some selected Chinese medicine. Then we perform a systematic search in the literature on drug information platforms. Once we consolidate those information, potential health drug pairs, we need to review how relevant they are to our clinical practice. So a specific clinical work group has been set up for this specific task, which comprises of both CM practitioners, doctors, CMWM pharmacists, and we consider those clinically relevant pairs. So factors to consider includes, for example, the dose of the CM and the WM prescribed, and the magnitude of the clinical outcome, and the strength of the documentation. So it is also important to categorize those interactions, because categorization improves some understanding, enhance communication, and also support decision making. So with this preliminary finding, we translate it into clinical applications, such as the decision support in the prescribing medication order entry system, and also some training materials, and also clinical guidelines. As Dr. Lau has mentioned, building a HDI database is an ongoing process, so we need to keep reviewing and revising our clinical database. So, for example, with the use of active tracking in the medication order system, so it is important to review how many prompts have been triggered and the percentage of overriding the prompts. So this is an example of our clinical guideline. With the database, we develop our clinical guideline. So the following informations are included to facilitate decision-making at point of care. There is a 3-level risk rating scale. For HDI with high risk rating, the administration should be avoided. And for those HDI pairs with moderate risk ratings, we should monitor, modify dose, and countersign review by senior CM practitioners. For HDI with no risk ratings, we should monitor the therapeutic or side effects. Well, this approach is a little bit different from what Dr. Wang has shared with us, because we try to standardize some kind of actions towards the 3 risk levels. We think that this is more practicable in our setting because we are a new establishment. So in this guideline, we also include the evidence strength, which range from unknown to excellent, depending on the types of evidence we have reviewed. There is the effects of the HDI and also the clinical recommendation. One of the most important things is we classify them, the interactions into according to the database we have reviewed. For example, this interaction was based on some direct clinical study or proven HDI reports based on pharmacokinetics, or whether it is based on pharmacodynamics. So, and further, to ensure real-world impact, we have implemented the guideline into the prescribing module. So upon prescribing, those potential HDI will be automatically detected across those Chinese medicine or Western medicine prescribed in a hospital. So relevant information will be displayed to facilitate the decision making. And then the prescriber would need to review the prescribed regimens, or for example, adjusting the dose or to switch to alternatives. If they think the regimens need to be proceeded where clinically appropriate, they have to handle the alert with justifications. We have also built some standardized overriding reasons for better documentation. So in addition to prevention, we also have implemented systematic mechanisms for the reporting of the HDIs. This ensures the capture and also the follow-up on the HDI events. All the potential suspected HDIs can be reported in our specific module in the hospital information system. So a collection of data will be captured, for example, the time course of the events, and also the related fields, such as the herbs and drugs involved, and also the vitals or relevant information before and after the events, and so on. So these mechanisms not only ensures we handle the HDI events systematically, but supports the continuous monitoring of the concurrent hub drugs use, generate data, and also facilitate us to refine our guideline with our local data. So training and education is another critical pillar. So for frontline healthcare professionals, we have organized mandatory training for all our Chinese medicine practitioners, nurses, doctors, and also pharmacy staff, for them to understand the basic concepts of the hub-drug interaction, potential mechanism, our internal guideline, and how it is applied in our practice. We also share hub-drug information via internal publication to promote continuous learning. So I have a few publications here with me. And for patients, we promote the safe hub drug use with the patient education leaflets, some reminders, cue cards, etc. This ensures the awareness across both the providers and also our patients. So we also implement a clinical pharmacy service for prospective review. This ensures us to capture real-world data to improve our practice continuously. The importance of the real-world data has been highlighted by Professor T before. So in our service, the objective is really to enhance the medication safety in integrated practice. So our pharmacists would target those patients receiving integrated care, integrated CM care in our day ward. So they would perform some medication review, trying to get a complete drug list as much as possible, and also to interview patients and their carers to assess the compliance and also identify if there are any potential drug-related problems. And then last but not least is to evaluate the hub-drug interactions risk. So among the 77 patients we have assessed in the first quarter as a pilot, we found that the non-compliance and also the adverse drug reaction to drugs are the major drug-related problems we identified. And most of the patients follow the instructions, our instructions in handling the hub drug taking with separation at least for 1 to 2 hours. And there were no significant side effects reported so far. But we do identify 22 potential hub drug interactions according to our internal clinical guideline, and they were monitored throughout the patient journey. Those patients are mainly stroke rehab patients, so they were on some antihypertensive, some anticoagulants. These are the most commonly used items in these patients. So this is not the end of our journey. So looking ahead, our main priorities will be to continue in expanding our HDI database, because our initial database only covers selected Chinese medicine and the drugs only. And then we would continue to collect prospective clinical data and then to enhance research and thus the evidence-based practice and builds collaboration to continuously develop the HDI database and the ICWM practice. And then last but not least is to continue to provide education to our healthcare professional and also the patients to build a safe hub drug use culture. So in conclusion, we have established governance of the hub drug safety via a specific task force. And then we have developed a locally relevant HDI clinical guideline and put into practice. And then we have integrated the real-time decision support and reporting in our hospital information system. And then also built a system for reporting, education, and continuous improvement. I would also like to take this opportunity to acknowledge the support from our hospital management and also the members from the HDI task groups and clinical work group. So that's all of my presentation today. Thank you.
So thank you, Ms. Ho, and also thank you to Dr. Lau. So this brings us to the conclusion of today's parallel session. And once again, thank you so much for Professor Kara Lau for her professional moderation and our 10 esteemed speakers for their insightful presentation. We hope today's exchange will inspire further collaboration and advancement in the field. So thank you very much for your participation, and you are most welcome to proceed to the auditorium to attend the poster presentation award. So, and last but not least, for those who would like to leave the venue, we have arranged free shuttle bus service departing to Tseung Kwan O MTR public transport interchange. The departure time will be 6:10, 6:20, and 6:30. So please approach the shuttle bus pickup point located on the right outside the hospital entrance for shuttle bus service. So thank you very much. Thank you.
须有充足的实验数据才能投资临床。这从科学的态度而言是严谨的，甚至是苛刻的，因此对时间和空间的要求很高。所以有时候面对疾病显得很无奈，要么姑息，比如止痛药、退热药的使用，要么束手无策，坐以